Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Curious Realm's continuing coverage of the 2024 MUFON International Symposium here in Irving, Texas. We have the great pleasure of being joined by Margie Kay. She is not only an author in the world of UFO, UAP, paranormal, but she is also one of the heads of the UnX Network. Welcome back to the show, Margie.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
How has the conference been going for you? It was a good trip for you from Missouri, things like that, but how...
Well, you know, it's a long trip from Missouri to Texas, but I'm glad we came because we've just had a lot of interest in the UnX Network and our conference coming up and our books, so it's been wonderful.
Well, let's start at the beginning. How did the UnX Network begin? How did you get involved in the world of paranormal, UFO, UAP, and Esoteric, Margie?
Well, that goes back a ways. So to my childhood, I would say around age 11, I had my first introduction to a ghost and just kind of went from there. From ghosts to UFOs to cryptids to anything. If it's unusual or weird, I want to know about it.
Yeah, and I'm very much the same way. It was one of those when I went to the library in junior high, my brother checked out Stephen King and Dinar Coots, and I was checking out books on, vampires and werewolves and lore and amulets and talismans and things. My mother was just happy I was reading.
There you go. Whatever it takes.
I don't care what it is, like books on lasers, rockets, whatever, man, just read something. And that's just it. It's interesting to see how a whole life literally becomes dedicated to the world of research. And rabbits are y'all's mascot for a reason, because the world is full of rabbit holes underneath this. And the more you explore, the more they connect. It's pretty interesting.
Well, once you go in the rabbit hole, you can't get out.
Yeah.
Because it just keeps going and going. And, when you discover one thing, there's something else behind it.
Yeah. Now, let's start getting into the festival a little bit. What kind of things can people expect at the upcoming UnX Festival that's going on?
Well, we're calling it XCon 2024. It'll be our third conference officially under the UnX Network. And we meet in Springfield, Missouri at the very haunted Oasis Hotel. And I imagine we're going to keep going to the same place year after year because last year during the conference we had some ghosts walk in and some shadows on the ceiling and some major stuff. So some people even had some ghosts visit in their hotel rooms.
I remember hearing that.
So for those of us into paranormal, it's the perfect place. So we are going to do a ghost hunt. So Friday is our paranormal day. We will have speakers about the paranormal all day, some workshops in the evening, and then, of course, the ghost hunt. And then the other 2 days are dedicated to UFOs and cryptids.
Awesome.
And we've got some great speakers lined up. Scott Nelson, of course, in cryptozoology, very well known. Peter Robbins in the UFO field. And we've even got Micah Hanks, just came on board. And, of course, he is... both Peter and Micah have shows on the UnX Network, and it's going to be great. We've got a surprise coming too I can't talk about yet, but we've always got to put something in there. And, of course, we do the Mad Hatter Costume Party Banquet. Nice. And, sticking with the theme, of course.
That's right. That's right. Now, one of the things we talk about regularly on the show is the connection between these fields, the connection between paranormal, cryptozoology, UFO, UAP. It seems like all of these things are roiling to a head of connection. It's really interesting the more you dig into them, the closer connected they are, Margie.
Well, indeed it is. And for instance, as an investigator, when I'm doing an investigation with someone, I always ask, is there anything else you want to tell me? And it delves into some other subject, but they have these other experiences. For instance, UFO experiencer, and then they say, well, we've got poltergeist activity in the house. People are, something is throwing dishes around. We saw a Sasquatch outside. We're, hearing them. So I think it's actually an individual thing. It's my opinion that once the person has activated their psychic center and they have connected to higher dimensions, then these things in other dimensions are visible to them.
Yeah, and I mean, we spoke last time you were on the show. We've spoken with a few people here about it. The idea that vibrationally, especially if you've been abducted in the presence of craft, things like that, like, you have been around a different field of RF radiation, magnetic radiation. It will literally change the way you vibrate to know that, like, a craft could interdimensionally travel or warp space and time. That would be something in the order of, like, even if you bring food near a microwave, things change, you know?
Yes,
there's a change that happens and that occurs, and it's much like bringing an analog watch near a magnet. Like, something is fixed in a different way from that kind of experience. And even the work of Kathleen Martin, you know, like that's why her work has very much moved from ERT to the spiritual experience of things. And once again, the way that UFO experiencers and abductees have these other experiences, end up being connected with poltergeist activity, end up being connected with portals and other weird things happening around them.
Yeah, it's the individual
Yeah.
again. And that's one of the reasons why I teach classes in remote viewing and esoteric knowledge, and just ways that people can activate their pineal gland in order to raise their vibration. And it is all about vibration.
Yeah. Now, let's get into your work in remote viewing and training people for such things, because it's a big point of fascination for me. I take some remote viewing classes with Lynn Buchanan, that kind of stuff. But I also regularly talk on the show about the work of Hal Puthoff and the paper that he wrote so many decades ago that begat laboratory remote viewing. The idea that scientists, when they went home and thought about their experiment, were adversely affecting their experiment. Were actively changing the way things were happening in the lab simply because they were thinking about it at home at a distance. And, you know, as a paranormal investigator, as somebody who trains people for those things, have you ever considered a connection between somebody preparing equipment, getting ready to go out on an investigation, thinking about a location, thinking, oh, you know, I heard this story, I heard that story. You may be very well charging that location the same way that scientist is affecting their experiment.
You certainly can. I think that most people don't realize what kind of an effect, a ripple effect, happens in the cosmos just by thinking something.
Yeah.
And you know, we're talking about telepathy here and remote viewing. And for instance, if there's a paranormal investigation, somebody's got a really bad poltergeist in their house, I will always remote view that first before I go. But what happens is that entity knows I'm coming. They've seen me in my etheric body on site. They already know, so I have affected the outcome of the investigation that hasn't happened yet. And so that's interesting.
Yeah. And I was just about to ask, you know, has it ever been the fact of you experience the spirit viewing you as you're viewing them?
Yes. A lot of times they'll back off and they will stop the activity even before we've investigated the property in person, and they never come back because I have been there and I've said, you're not going to be doing this.
Yeah.
It's over.
You've already visited remotely. You've already encountered that spirit in an exorcismic way, so to speak.
Sort of. Yes. Yeah. I don't.
You're not an exorcist.
I'm not an exorcist. I don't. But I can get rid of the bad guys.
Sure.
Let's put it like that.
And very much being able to talk to that side, being able to relate to that side. Once again, being able to remote view into that side of things. It gives them the opportunity to kind of see you coming, so to speak. You know, and to be aware of. You can either go now, or things may not be as happy for you when you're asked to leave later. You know?
That's kind of the message, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all a matter, actually, of your power level. So if I have more power, I can generate a lot of power. So if I have more than that entity does, they know they don't have a chance and they just leave.
Yeah, yeah. Now, let's explore that concept of internal power real quick, because, of course, that is one of the many messages that experiencers of UFO UAP come back with, is the idea that we are empty vessels for souls, so to speak, is the message that they've been sent back with, that these beings visiting us are very interested in our spiritual form, very interested in the way that we embody this corporeal being, so to speak, to pilot this vehicle around. How do you think that relates to the world of paranormal, Margie?
Well, as far as their perception, and they're obviously watching us.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're checking us out. They're investigating for many years and wanting to know how we work.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to figure out how we work. We're trying to figure out the whole spiritual aspect, and when I say spirit, I mean light bodies.
Yes.
You know, we are 7 bodies, and we have the physical one, but we have 6 other bodies. And as far as like remote viewing goes, I'm using my etheric body. I don't use my astral, because the astral is more dense and it's more difficult to get it out of the physical to take off. A lot of people use the astral body, but you really should be asleep or in a very deep meditative state to do it. And so I do it a little differently. It's just a way that I discovered along the way. And but you know, I think that these other beings, whoever they are and wherever they come from, whether it's interdimensional or standing right next to us right now and we don't see them, you know, they're curious. We would be doing the same thing if we knew of their existence.
Yeah. You know, I mean, why else would we supposedly have them in vials at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base? Why would we be gathering their tape? Because we're curious, you know, and even when it comes to UFO, UAP, aliens, and remote viewing, I am always reminded of a conversation that I had with Lynn Buchanan. And I asked him one time over meal while we were just sitting there, like, have you ever tried to remote view the others who come and visit us? He's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And he began to explain to me the idea of the Greys as we know them, this race of beings that are hive mind, things like that. And he's like, one of the reasons why they have come to talk to us is because uniquely in the universe, we have this thing called humanity and creativity. They used to have something akin to it, but when they decided to become a hive mind, they lost individuality.
Right.
They no longer have the means by which to say, oh, this is a really cool piece of technology. Let's recreate it and use it for this. They don't have the ingenuity anymore or the creativity to individually think of something like that. So they're cooperatively using us to help create new technology out of their technology that helps further them. And it's a very interesting concept.
I like that.
You know, really interesting. Have you yourself ever remote viewed those that are visiting us here, Margie? And if so, what have you seen?
I have, and the first time I did it was for a case that I was working. An individual had some sightings and some visitation, but she just wanted clarification that she had actually been abducted and what happened during that time.
Sure.
I said, okay, I'll take a look. So suddenly I am on a craft. It has silver walls that are curved. I'm in a room with her. I see her lying on a silver table, and I see 2 Greys, one at her head and one on the other side of her. But there was a taller being with his back to me, and he was observing what the Greys were doing to her. And, you know, they were, you know, doing whatever they do.
Yeah.
And suddenly the one that had his back to me, who was taller, turned right around and looked me right in the eyes. And he was like taking me in for a minute, and then he went back to what he was doing. So obviously I was not a threat, but he knew I was there, and this is a different time period in a different location. And so that showed me a couple of things, mainly that they knew I was there. They could see my etheric body.
Sure.
So, and they knew my capabilities, like no threat. I'm just observing. And so I got out of there, and since then I've done several others.
Interesting. And, that brings us right back to the idea of that vibration, that idea of numerous levels of our being, numerous vibrations of body, and the idea that, they would have had to have either been in that realm of vibration that you were in or had access to it to know that you were physically there in that realm of vibration, observing them, seeing them, or even be clued into the fact that you were present.
I believe, it's my opinion, they were in fifth dimension, and so was I at the time.
Okay.
That, when I use my etheric body and go to observe something, I'm in fifth dimension.
Okay. Now, let's explore that real quick, the idea, because I've always been fascinated. I've done a little bit of dream work, things like that, and I will definitely say that I have begun that process of astral projection and then had that horrible experience of the sensation of falling and coming right back.
Oh, yeah. That's always fun.
And being jerked right back
slamming
in.
back in.
Yeah. And there is that idea that if you can get past that's where you get to the point of release an astral projection. That you've got to get past that amygdala fear of falling, because that's actually you crossing through. How do you tell the difference between being in the etheric plane and being in the astral plane, Margie?
Oh, super easy. In the etheric plane, you're super, super light. You don't feel yourself, although you can still feel the ground.
Okay.
Or you could touch something and feel it. And humans do not see you. So a living human being would not see me unless, of course, they were also projecting or meditating, something like that. That would have to be the case.
Okay.
And it's also a very light meditation in order to leave my body. I mean, now I've done it so much that I can just sit for a couple of seconds and I can do it.
Okay.
For somebody else, it might take them a few minutes. But you're not in a deep meditative state. You don't have to be asleep. You don't have to be lying down, super relaxed. It's just much easier than astral projection.
Okay, so astral projection would be basically the next step.
Yes.
And how would that, I guess, physically identify? How would that feel when you're, just so somebody can tell the difference between the two?
Sure. I started my first astral projection when I was 15, so I did the opposite of what I should have done, and I started just doing that. And what it feels like for me, everybody is a little bit different, but I start feeling a vibration, a shaking, especially in my jaw, but it could be my whole body. And then it feels like my body's spinning, and I go out the top of my head. So I spin, and then go up. So you get a little bit dizzy, and then rise out of the top of your head. And when the first time you do it, if you, of course, the first time I did it, I was afraid, and I slammed back in my body and felt like I fell from 300 feet.
Yeah.
And then the second time I did it, I was calm enough to just float up, and then when I did, I looked at myself lying asleep on the bed. And that's always a freak out. And then you slam back into your body again.
Absolutely.
Because just any little bit of that emotion of fear that pulls down your vibration. You're right. So you're just going to go back to 3D.
Yeah.
But then after that, I was able to easily go out and travel around. And it's fun to do. You can just go anywhere you want to. You can go to the moon.
Yeah.
I've been to Tibet a number of times, and in fact, the first time I actually successfully got out, I went to Tibet for some reason. I didn't know why, and I was floating above the area, and these monks turned around and they said, "Oh, hi, it's good to see you again." And I'm like, "You know me?" And they said, "Yes, you spent several lifetimes reincarnating with us."
Oh, wow. Wow.
and it was crazy.
Incredible. Now, when astral traveling, when etherically traveling, how careful do you have to be, Margie? Because one of the things I have considered regularly on the show is I don't play with spirit boards or Ouija boards for a reason.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to.
I don't know that I would, and kind of in the same right. I don't, even though I have the CE5 app, like I kind of hesitate to do the same thing for the same reason, because how dangerous is that invitation out there for something else to connect? B, how dangerous is it for you to go wandering around in the etheric plane?
Okay, so it's much less dangerous to go wandering around.
Okay.
Okay, because of course you've put your protection up. You've got white light around you.
Okay.
You're protected and you're in control. You have a silver cord connecting from your physical to your astral or your etheric, and you're in charge of the situation. Because if anything, let's say something bad happened to your physical body. Let's say the house was on fire or something. You will immediately be brought back, just automatic. You don't have to think about it.
Okay.
Your physical will do that. And I've never encountered anything negative while it was out of my body.
Okay.
I have observed things that have happened in the past that were negative.
Sure.
Such as, some of the work I do with solving homicide and missing person cases. Mm-hmm. That's usually nothing good. But it is not at that moment, and it's not something that can affect me.
Okay.
Because it's happened in the past, and I'm
Gotcha.
Right. But as far as messing with Ouija boards and spirit boards, I will personally do it because I don't have a fear of it.
Okay.
But for anybody who has any kind of a fear of it or who doesn't know what they're doing, i.e. putting up protection first and then inviting, let's say, a relative, a specific person or entity that has crossed over, you don't want to just open it to anything.
Yeah.
And that's when the bad stuff happens. And, Exorcist, just in, for an example, the movie, which was greatly...
Captain Howdy.
Yeah, we don't want that.
and that's the example that I give regularly is Captain Howdy came as a friend. Regan played with him regularly. Before things happened. Yep. And that's just it, that idea of being able to identify what is dangerous, being able to make sure that you're protected before you go through things. Even whenever we talked to Kathleen Martin about the sessions that they did with the Intergalactic Council, things like that, they had a spiritual director on site with them. They had an actual reverend who was there to help them discern good from bad, good acting from bad acting, things like that. Like someone there to help focus them in that kind of way because, you're dealing with an unknown. You're inviting communication with something unknown. So you definitely want to make sure to take those protections. And that's something that I always caveat my audience about is, don't be afraid of the etheric plane. Don't be afraid of the other side. There's really no reason to fear any of that because most of that is our vibration that we're putting out. And, negativity is magnified 10 times more than positivity. Yeah. That's just how the universe works, So, if you're putting out negative vibes, something negative very well may happen. With your experience.
I agree with you 100% on that. I think a lot of people who have negative experiences, they are negative people and they're attracting that vibration.
Yeah.
And some of these shows you see on TV with, ghost hunters and they're working with somebody and those people you can tell are in that mode.
Yeah.
Everything bad happens to them. They have drama around their life constantly.
Yeah.
That's what they're attracting in that low vibration.
Mm-hmm. And that was something that even throughout the whole pandemic, Margie, that is what I kept warning my audience about was take a shot, don't take a shot. The most important thing is your focus on this and whether or not you are seeing this as the worst thing in the world, whether or not you're seeing it as the end of it, like the more negative you see it, the more negativity we are manifesting about it.
Yeah.
You know, like you've got to look at the actual positive numbers, you know.
Yeah.
Even my wife, I would give like, okay, so I've got a 1% chance of catching it, and out of the 1% that catch it, 1% die. I think I'll stick with my 0.01% chances. I've still got a vaccination, things like that. But it's the fact that I'm not going to let the negativity rule my everyday decision. I'm not going to let the negativity rule my everyday life and overbearingly crush me in the hopes of the world, you know?
Yeah, and there was a really, really negative dark cloud over the entire planet during that.
Absolutely.
And it just got a hold of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and even now we're still reverberating from it. We're still divided from it. And it's so interesting to see, like, yes, horrible things happen. Don't get me wrong, but it was the fact of, wow, people really locked into that negative vibe hard for a long time, and they're still in that. And to know that, you know, we were speaking even earlier with Dr. Stankovic about the NIH studies that were done on the hippocampus and negative news cycles. Like, there is actually damage done to your brain from negative news cycles that is almost irreparable with your hippocampus. And when your hippocampus is damaged, you have direct access to the amygdala. That's fight or flight response. That's the reptilian brain. You're damaging the filter to that by watching negative things and by living in that negative cycle. And it's so interesting to see how that affects all of this, how your vibration in the world around you affects every bit of that attraction.
Yeah. I think humanity as a whole needs to learn how to focus on positive. And if there's negative around or this constant news cycle, turn it off.
Yep.
Watch something good.
Yeah.
Raise your vibration. Learn something new. You know, watch TV and shows like yours and YouTube that are uplifting.
Go throw
it will
a
change
frisbee.
your life. There you go. Go outside.
Go fish.
That'd be a novel idea.
Take a hat off and go get some pineal sun, you know, on your brain. Like these things are essential. They're essential, and we are locked in to a world right now, Margie, that is overwrought with EF. We are constantly surrounded by Wi-Fi signals, all kinds of things. Constantly, at one point, not that long ago, my grandparents' generation, they grew up as sharecroppers in Louisiana. When the sun went down, if you didn't have a fat lamp going on or something,
you're sleeping.
It was dark.
Right.
You remember when the TV cut off?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was my life. I remember watching the flag wave and like, sorry, man, 8 hours, go to sleep. Go get some rest. TV's over.
Yeah.
Not anymore. It's a 24-hour cycle.
It's
constantly happening. We're doom scrolling till 2 a.m. and wondering why we can't sleep till 6. You know?
Well,
things like that.
And just watching that blue screen will keep you up for 2 hours.
Exactly.
So you've got to stop doing that for 2 hours before you go to bed.
Yeah. And it's and then you marry to that the fact that, you know, your HD TV is flashing 4 times faster than your eyes see, which means you're going into a zombified state 4 times faster, which means you're more susceptible to negativity.
We just have to get the word out about that so people realize what's going on.
Exactly. How do people, especially experiencers of UFO, UAP, negative paranormal experiences, Margie, how do they begin to reopen their life, reopen their heart to that positivity? How do they begin to shift their vibration in these last few minutes that we have you?
Well, I think that if someone is having ongoing experiences, they really need to talk to someone else, whether it's a therapist or a QHHT practitioner, whatever, or just someone else who has had experiences similar to theirs, just to talk about it. That really helps just lower the level of anxiety, knowing that other people have had the same types of experiences. And what I always tell my witnesses, people I work with, if they wanted to wipe us off the earth, if they really wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And we would all be gone because their technology is so much greater, higher than ours, that that's not their agenda.
It's not the end goal.
No.
It's not the end game. Otherwise, exactly. And it's one of those, like, I still follow the modicum of good people like Stephen Hawking. Maybe we shouldn't be blasting our location out across the universe. Maybe we shouldn't be throwing our DNA code on the side of satellites saying, here it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to be open. We have to be ready for that communication. We have to be open-hearted as a society to experiencers. We have to, no different than the hashtag #MeToo movement, if you aren't ready for that hard truth and that hard conversation, society will suffer. Yep. It will suffer, and we will continue to suffer. So we have to open our hearts. We have to open our minds to these truly hard conversations, of experience.
Yeah. And we have to realize there's more than a 3D experience. We are multidimensional.
That's right.
And if we just open our minds and do, if people want to know that, there's a trigger. Trigger your pineal gland to wake up.
Yeah.
And it'll happen.
Absolutely. Margie, thank you so much for the time on this very busy MUFON Symposium. Let everybody know where they can go to find out more about the UnX Network, where they can go to subscribe, and where they can go to get their tickets for XCon.
Yeah, UnXNetwork.com. It's UnXNetwork.com. Give you all the information about the network. You can sign up for a free subscription or a paid, whichever one you want. You will get a digital copy of our magazine, and our daily newsletter talks about our shows coming up that evening. And, of course, XCon 2024, there's a page on our network that will tell you about that on our website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the time, Margie.
Thank
it's
you,
been
Chris.
Fantastic.
Good to see you.
Absolutely. Same. While you were online checking out everything from Margie Kay, the UnX Network, as well as XCon, make sure to stop on by MUFON.com as well as CuriousRealm.com. Curious Realm is where you can like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. That is where you can get your copy of the observation and encounter log that we have made for paranormal, UFO, and cryptid investigators. It's where you can get your binaural beat therapy music. That's where you can find connections to other great places like UnX Network and other spots like that. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks. We will be right back with our continuing coverage of the 2024 MUFON International Symposium right here in Irving, Texas. After this, folks.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at CuriousRealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is CuriousRealm.com/store.